In this video, we're going to have a bit of a more practical example. So we've got our LRS, and it's full of the data from a sales company and their fake salespeople. What they've been mostly doing is calling customers to try and make sales. And we'd like to see which of them has made the most calls, so which is the most effective salesperson. So we use Learning Locker to help us with that by getting the parameters for the first query. The first stage in our pipeline is going to be a match. We're going to only want to see the called verbs. There's a lot of extra stuff. There's people creating things, there's people joining the company. We only want to see called. If we click on that, it gets added to the query builder over here, and we can toggle to the code view to get the actual query that we can use inside the aggregation API. The aggregation queries are always wrapped in array brackets. And the first parameter is going to be a match stage, which is going to filter down our statements. So we give a match key, and inside that we can provide the query that we just copied from Learning Locker. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Learning Locker builds quite complex queries to handle a lot of different cases. Our case is very simple. We've only got one parameter, so we can actually throw away a lot of the extra detail. What we're actually interested in is that statement.verb.id is equal to the called verb's ID. So if we validate that, alright, looks valid, we can apply that to the pipeline parameter. We should get back a big list of, make sure that cleared properly, of called verbs. Alright, there's a lot of data there, but that seems to be a good start. The next thing we want to do is add a group stage to group together all of the statements for each individual actor. So the operator is $group. $group takes an ID, so you say what is unique about the statement that puts in a particular group. So we need underscore ID, and we're going to give an arbitrary name. You can call this whatever you like. We'll call it mbox, and this is going to point to statement.actor.mbox. The dollar here is important. So on the right hand side of your object values, you want to use the dollar to say that I'm looking inside the document. So look inside the current document for the key statement.actor.mbox and then group by that. And we might also want to get some real information out. Let's just send that first. Alright, it's grouped, it's identified the different actors that are in our data set. We don't really know anything more about them other than their IDs. I think we can actually make this more simple. So you can add a multiple key ID if you want to group by more than one thing, but I think you can just provide a single value. So let's try that. Okay, that's worked just fine. we've got a much simpler output. It doesn't really tell us anything about the group. So we'll add another field, we'll add a count. And we're going to use one of the built-in operators, group operators, which is $sum. So you can sum from something that's inside the document. So you could pull out somebody's score from the result field and sum up all of the scores for a single person. But here we just want to count the statements. So we want a sum of 1 for every document. So this should give us a count. There we go, a count next to each actor. The mbox itself is not very readable, so it might also be good to see the actor's name. Let's add that as well. The keys on the left, count and name, they're just labels that I've picked. I could call those anything. It's the values on the right that are important. The keys on the left just instruct what the output should look like. Now, I've grouped by statement.actor.mbox, so that's the only thing that's going to be the same, or is guaranteed to be the same, for every document in a bucket in this grouping. If I want to access any of the other fields, I need to say that which document I want them from. So I'm going to say that I'm taking name from the very first document that appears in this group. It should be that name is the same for all of these, but I can't guarantee that because that's not what I've grouped on. So I'll have to take it from the first one. And there we've added name to the output. We still get the ID included in our output, which we might not want. So we're going to add a project stage. Project allows us to do a couple of things. It allows us to choose what fields we want to see, and it allows us to reorganize our data. So let's firstly exclude ID. We don't want to see the mbox anymore. We only want to see the name and the count. So count is 1. And for name, I actually decide that I don't want it to be called name. I want to rename it. So I'm going to call this actor name. I could have done this in the group stage. This is just for an example. I'm pulling actor name from $name. Hopefully I've not messed up the syntax here. And there, I've got exactly the information that I wanted. It comes back pretty quickly. This was less than 200 milliseconds. But it's important to make sure that you're hitting indexes as you get larger amounts of data size. I could also add a limit stage at any point in this pipeline. So I could limit the incoming statements, so that I only wanted to see 1,000. I could limit the outcoming actors to say that if I added a limit after the group, say I put a limit of 2, so I only want to see the top 2 performers. And this should only give me 2 results in the output. It's not gone well. And there you go, only 2 results. All of the possible things that you can do with the Aggregation API are detailed in the docs. Let's just head over to HTTP interfaces, aggregation, and there'll be links to MongoDB's aggregation documentation, which is pretty comprehensive, and we've got our own high-level overviews just to get you started.